Hi, everybody. Okay, so very interesting topic, designing the sound of a brand. So before we actually come to the nitty-gritties, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've had a unique privilege of living a two-in-one life for over 3 decades. I started off as a musician in college and then stumbled into advertising. I think it's the only field that I could have worked at with any degree of success. I luckily got into the creative field in advertising. And 25 years later, I found myself as National Creative Director of Mudra and conflicted because I wasn't getting enough time to play this baby. Right? So 11 years ago, I quit and I had to monetize my passion. I couldn't leave the family in the lurch and just go around playing the flute. So this whole idea happened, could I bring the two worlds that I had spent so much time in together? The world of branding and the world of music and sound. So realized very early on that we couldn't be seen as jingle makers because I'd done enough of that in my avatar as a creative director. Had to go deeper into how sound and music affects our emotions and our behavior. So that really was the starting point. So before I go any further, let's take you all through a sort of sonic experience. I'm going to play this flute, and I want all of you all to close your eyes and just go through the emotions that it will bring to you. You may see some imagery, it may trigger some memories, and we'll come back and have a quick chat about what you all saw and read. Yeah? So eyes closed, everybody. Sorry. Okay, short and sweet. Anybody want to start one word that you all saw, any imagery or something you felt, any memories? Mother. Mother, okay. Shepherd on a hill. Wow. Forest. Fantastic. Morning. Sorry? Sunrise. Okay, brilliant. So, I won't go much further. I'm sure all of you all would have had some sort of individual experience, but this is just to demonstrate the power of sound and how sound can take you places without any visuals attached, right? So you actually all went on a journey in your minds, and it's amazing wherever in the world we played this piece of music, everybody gets this kind of feeling. Greenery, water, sunrise, children playing. A Russian gentleman went to the mountains in Georgia and saw waterfalls and birds and butterflies, right? So what does this prove to us? That this entire experience that you've had is by design and not by accident. This particular scale I've used, you probably recognize it, it is Hamsadhwani. It's a very, very famous South Indian rag, and it uses only 5 notes in the scale. It's called a pentatonic scale. And what we've discovered is that pentatonic scale is the most fundamental scale to humanity. Every single musical culture uses the pentatonic scale in some form or the other. So if we listen to Chinese music, Chinese classical music, we often say, it sounds very childlike. You know, kind of. But that's because they largely revolve around the pentatonic scale. And so this actually, sparked a whole idea idea in us, why don't we start designing sound based on our rich heritage of Indian ragas and equivalent Western scales. So that's where the journey really began. And we know that different kinds of scales can actually evoke different kinds of emotions, right? So, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, major scale, happy, do, a deer, a female deer. I just changed that to do, re, mi. I changed the third note at a step, half step lower, and suddenly you're in a minor scale, and which is what lots of the blues musicians use, right? The minor scale to convey sadness and melancholy. So we said, what is the purpose of this? We are really trying to create the sound of a brand. And how do we create the sound of a brand? We need to understand the brand, we need to understand its evolution, etc., etc., what it stands for. And the key was, how do you link intangible brand parameters to tangible musical expression? And that really was the whole design process. This is what we've been doing for the past 10 years, designing and managing the sonic identity of a brand. And today, you know, early when we started off 10 years ago, we had more meetings than business because there was a lot of education we had to do. But today, in this digital age, sonic branding has become a must-have. Why? Because of the digital explosion, attention spans getting shorter, visual clutter, you know, screen fatigue. Can sound be some sort of an escape from there, but at the same time be an ally for brands and not be intrusive, because sound has a double-edged sword. Too much of it and you'll hate it. So you've got to be careful. So we created a term we call ear points, and the marketing jargon is touch points. I'm visually consistent across touch points. You'll hear this, right? So you design a logo, you design a set of font, you design a set of colors, all coming from the brand personality. But we say you got to be sonically consistent across ear points, and that's very critical for brands. Now I created this term called MOGO, or short form for musical logo, and we say in this experiential age, in this sensorial age, the MOGO is as important as a logo. So very quickly, just to take you through a brand process, and I thought since there's so many designers here, it'll be very interesting. Let me reveal some inside secrets, really, of how we go about this. So we have a three-stage process. I'll run through it very quickly. The first stage is something we call brand discovery, where really we are trying to understand the avatar and rasa of a brand, right? So what is the avatar? We borrow from Carl Jung's archetypes. Human beings can be classified into different character types, and we say brands also can be. So Mercedes is a ruler brand, Apple is a creator brand, J&J Baby is a caregiver brand, so on and so forth. So once we map the avatar, the next question we ask is, what rasa do you want to evoke? We use the theory of Indian navarasas, and these are the navarasas, right? But these are just starting points on a continuum. Actually, these are the different shades of emotion. And Karthik, you'll know, right? Each of these can be represented and expressed musically. We know that. So just the change of an instrument on the same melody will suddenly create a different kind of emotion. So then the next stage is we create sketches of sound where we actually bounce off line based on the avatar and rasa, right? So where does it all start? If you look at Hollywood, you look at Bollywood, all the years of sonic expression, when the hero comes onto the screen, what do you hear, right? Okay, I'll continue while they're doing that. So, da 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 dum, da 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 dum, da 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 dum, da 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 dum. That's the hero. I mean, you don't play it on the file, but No, no, there's a lot more. I need to show you a small case study. Sorry. Okay, so now look at that's the avatar that you're expressing musically, and awe is the kind of emotion you want to. But if it's a caregiver, right? Okay, so that could be a female voice, or it could be a flute, and you know that certain scales you use to create that kind of emotion. And once we get this feedback from the client, so we create mood boards and we share it with them, and it's amazing. Clients who say, "Hey, we're not musicians, don't put us on the spot," are suddenly saying, that death metal guitar, that's not part of my brand sound. We sometimes purposely put in outrageous sounds so that we get a violent reaction from the client. When we know they are starting now to put logic, to understand that this kind of instrument is more suited to my brand and my personality than that kind of instrument. This kind of melody is more suited. So we get feedback. It's a workshop session that we have, and we get this feedback, and then finally we go on to create what we call a MOGO scale, which is like a 90-second master composition for the brand. And there is also a MOGO within that. And finally, we also have a mini MOGO. Now, this is really the evolution of the digital age, where a MOGO is 3 seconds, a mini MOGO is 1.5 seconds or less. And brands need that for alerts, notifications, for payment confirmations, etc., etc. So this really forms the building blocks of a sonic identity system. And now we'll have to use that. So where all can the ear points play out? Right? Once you've created the master sound, just as when you have a visual identity, how do you take it across a visiting card, a letterhead, a billboard, a TV spot, etc. Similarly, we've mapped the ear points, right? So it could be TVC, it could be digital content, it could be social media, it could be podcasts, it could be digital activation, it could be retail spaces, it could be product, it could be playlist. So product, very interesting. EVs. Now EVs are a hazard if they don't have sound on the roads. But what kind of sound do they have? Is it just random, or is it a brand sound? Is it a sound that comes from the brand identity, the overall sonic identity that you've created? It's just an example. Please. Sure. Because now we come to, I was talking about our journey, and we initially began, the first big break we got was Vistara, where we created the onboard sound, we created the sound of Vistara. So boarding and landing, you'll hear our MOGO scale playing. And then the next big break was HDFC Bank, where the late Mr. Ranjan Kapoor was on our advisory board and actually helped us meet the head of HDFC Bank, and that really gave us a big break. So today, you go to any ATM, there are 15,000 ATMs in the country, you put in the debit card and you'll hear the MOGO, right? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Absolutely. So we said, look, HDFC Bank doesn't do much advertising. We asked them, where are you all going to be heard? And we suggested that the ATM, it's a major anxiety source, right? You go there, you put in your debit card, you don't know what's happening. Is it working? And then you're waiting to walk away, and is it safe to go because there are 3 guys waiting behind you? But now the MOGO tells them, the minute the debit card goes in, the MOGO communicates, hey, it's active. When you finish your transaction, the MOGO plays, and you know it's safe to walk away, right? So it's serving a purpose beyond just branding. It is getting into navigational sounds, utility sounds, etc. So, yeah, so MasterCard approached us, and they'd heard HDFC Bank somewhere. So we got to get a call, and before we knew it, we'd signed up to create the sonic identity of MasterCard Global across 190 countries. And it was a 9-month project. It was an amazing experience because we dealt directly with the MasterCard team. And when we took them through the Avatar and Rasa approach, they were quite surprised. A huge brand like that had never looked at it from this lens. So they said, look, we're a magician brand because we are about priceless moments. And we are a combination of magician and Aam Aadmi because the debit card and credit card category is meant for everybody. Whoa, it's come, okay. So in terms of the rasas, they said sense of optimism, joy, etc. So now what do? We start designing the sound based on the avatar. If you study the history of Walt Disney, you'll get all the magical sounds you want, right? There's certain instruments that instantly cue a sense of magic. So we put all that into the mix. We got a winning MOGO scape, and finally, hopefully it'll play. So we create. Let's go forward, please. Go up to MasterCard. Yeah, it's after this. Yes. Yeah, I've spoken about the avatars. Go ahead. Yeah. Simple melody, hummable anywhere in the world, across cultures, across gender, socio-economic strata, etc. Now let's hear the MOGO. Play it again. That's the MOGO, 3 seconds. Now for the mini MOGO, we had a challenge. 1.5 seconds. If you try to compress this, you'll sound like a cartoon. Yeah, but this was the MOGO sound we created. Can you please? Right? So it's a digital sound. It's beneath 1.5 seconds, and it still reminds you of the MOGO. So these were the. Thank you. Let's see how it was adapted to the TV system. There are clear guidelines. They must be doing 3,000 commercials a year across the world. How do different creative agencies actually adopt this clear guidelines given of a key of basic tempos they could use? The MOGO and the logo at the end should come together. There shouldn't be a third voiceover saying MasterCard over that. Things like that. We've created what we call a MOGO manual, and they give it to all their creative agencies, etc. Okay, now how do we adapt the same melody to the different regions of the world? Let's hear Middle East. Latin America. Different moods and occasions, emotional. Okay, one second. Now this was amazing. They want during they sponsor EPL and the European League, and they wanted a fans anthem. So we said we'd get into the studio and we brought in lots of voices and we recorded, we sent it, rejected. Fine-tuned the mix, sent it, rejected. What's happening? Finally, we got the insight that it's sounding too good. That we need somebody to sing Besur. Because that's what fans do, right? It's not perfect pitch. So we actually called in everybody in the studio, the chai boy, the our drivers, etc. We played the pilot for them and then we said, now come on, sing against this. And they sang deliciously off key. And we put it all together and yeah. So this is how they used it. During COVID, they actually created this digital activation where they said you can't come into the stadium for the football matches. So why don't you just listen to the anthem and then do a Mexican wave in your homes and send it to us? And they stitched together this giant digital video with thousands of people doing the Mexican wave. How the mini MOGO is used.
Smart speaker. Order red acrylic paint.
Your order has been placed.
On POS machine. At the New York subway. This is amazing. Now, the trend we're noticing is, and you all are all youngsters here, a lot of youngsters here. Basically, today, the new generation is cynical of brands. okay? They don't believe brands. They think brands are bullshitting them, okay? So the traditional one-way communication of the TV spot is no longer cutting ice. I have ZPTO for dandruff, therefore I'll remove all your dandruff, right? So there's experience. Brands have to create experiences beyond overt communication. So we created this term called sonic watermarking, and we said in today's digital content, there is still a way to subtly brand yourself without branding yourself, right? So it comes through as content, it's consumed as content, but you subtly build the brand in. And MasterCard took it to heart, and they've created a playlist on Spotify called Priceless, which has no MasterCard branding, visual branding, but it is composed by Lady Gaga's producer, and they have identified 12 young musicians across the world and created content pop songs around the MasterCard MOGO, right? So this is one example. This is called Merry-Go-Round. It was very successful, but you can hear the entire album on Spotify. Yeah.
I can see clearly, almost lost me nearly. He was such a mess, and I know it.
Yeah. So that's the power. That's the power of a sonic identity, well crafted, well thought out, and of course needs the client's commitment and purse strings to actually put it out there and make it a success. So 3 years in a row, MasterCard has been the global brand, sonic brand globally. And this year we are very happy that HDFC Bank made it also to the top 10 of global brands, sonic brands. So yeah, that's really it. I just have 2 minutes left. I want to play a video which we all find very interesting. The next big thing is navigational design on apps, right? Sonic design on apps. So when Zomato called us and we designed the sound for Zomato, we went to them and we said, look, you can do all the traditional sonic branding stuff, but you have an opportunity here. Because one of the things we noticed was when people order on Zomato, they're keeping on looking at the app. When is that rider going to come? When is that rider? So it disrupts your meetings. If you're in a meeting, you're waiting for food, you're keeping on looking. What if sound could cue the rider's journey, right? And this is what we did with Zomato. So the zoom was very important because that's part of the mini MOGO. So when the rider leaves the restaurant, you hear zoom. And when the rider reaches your home, you'll hear zoom. Right? So the many times I just hear that and go to the door and open the door and the rider's waiting, almost going to punch the doorbell. So these are some of the things. That's about it.